it's a real pleasure of mine to check in with Daria Dekanenko, who is Ukrainian. She recently was in Kharkiv, the town that is in the northeast of Ukraine and has really come under unbelievable attacks. She's now in the United Arab Emirates, UAE, with her husband, and she's here to tell us a little bit about what's happening in Kharkiv. Daria, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yeah, thank you. I'm fine now, thanks. Yeah, now I'm safe, and I, with my mother, came here to Dubai to my husband.
So tell me a little bit about what happened. You said you just got back to Kharkiv, what, 2 days before the war started?
2 hours before the war started.
2 hours before the war started.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about it.
No one believes that the war can start now in the 21st century. So I had my honeymoon trip, and really 2 hours before the war began, I came home. And then 9 days we were in our house in a bathroom because we thought it was the most safe place in our flat.
And that's in Kharkiv or close to Kharkiv?
It's in Kharkiv in Saltivka. This is a region of Kharkiv that is close to the border with Russian Federation.
And Kharkiv, just to remind everyone, is in the northeast of Ukraine, close to Russia. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So tell us what you saw, what you did.
We just were at home and just hear the bombs, different bombs, because we hear different noise. And also we saw planes that were flying very low near our house. And it was terrible. I'm working in aviation actually, and I even didn't think that I will be afraid of a noise of a plane. It was really terrible when it was flying, and you didn't know whether you will be alive in the next minute or not.
How did you deal with that? Did you go to a bomb shelter? Did you go to the middle of the building? How did you psychologically deal with the risk of death?
We go to the shelter, but 2 times, and then we decided to be at home in our bathroom, actually, and we were there for 9 days.
9 days, and you know, the pictures we've seen of Kharkiv are horrific. They've destroyed the city in a lot of ways. Were the buildings near you destroyed?
Yes. We have a supermarket near us, and it opened like 5 or 6 months ago, and it is destroyed now. And the 16 stories building near our building is also destroyed.
Now the
our
Russians...
building is now not destroyed, as I know, but there is no people who we can ask whether our building is okay or not now.
Now the Russians never got into Kharkiv, I understand. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Why and how do you think the Ukrainian forces were able to keep Russia out of Kharkiv? It's so close to Russia.
I don't know exactly, but I think that because of Kharkiv is too close, they can reach town by their guns. So it was very difficult to make it safe.
Yeah. And what made you decide to leave after the 9 days?
because we had one destroyed building near us, and it was a wave when our house. They think it won't stay, and so it will be ruined. So we decided to go to my husband.
And tell me, how did you escape? How did you get out of Ukraine?
We got from Kharkiv by train to Lviv, and then to Rzeszów by bus, and then from Rzeszów to Warsaw by bus also, and then by plane to Dubai.
How long did that take you?
4 days.
4 days. And Rzeszów is in Poland, correct?
Yeah.
And was crossing the border a problem between Ukraine and Poland?
There was a big queue. Then a lot of people with little children, and that's also in a queue. We spent 16 hours while crossing border, Ukrainian and Poland border.
And that queue was what, to check your papers or figure out if you had money, or what type of questions were you asked when you were trying to cross the border?
No, just waiting, because there was a lot of people in cars, in buses, and also somebody decided to cross the border by feet. So there was a lot amount of people who wanted to leave Ukraine because of this terrible situation.
And what was the reception like in Rzeszów and Warsaw?
I want to say thank you to all Poland nation and the government, because they really helped all the people.
Mm-hmm.
They really take care of us, and we were safe there for the first time.
That must have been a huge relief.
Yes, yeah.
Do you still have family in Kharkiv?
No, I have only my mother and my husband, and they're all with me and safe now. But I have my friends that are in Kharkiv, but in the center of the city, so they're not under bombing and quite safe. But
so the bombing was only in the outskirts of Kharkiv. It wasn't in the center of the city.
No, in the center also, but not so big. It is just I know Bonchance, but they have bombing all the town, no matter in which region you are. But some people decided to stay there because they have their parents there and they want to go somewhere, so they need to stay.
Right. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back in just a few minutes with Daria Dekanenko, who is Ukrainian from Kharkiv, a town in the northeast portion of Ukraine, right close to the border with Russia. She's now in the UAE safe with her husband and her mother. But we're hearing her story of what it was like to be in Kharkiv during those first 9 days of the Russian invasion into sovereign country Ukraine next door. This is a really unique opportunity to get a front line, firsthand view of what it's like to be involved in an invasion, a war. And we're chatting tonight with Daria Dekanenko, who is a former resident of Kharkiv. She still has a home in Kharkiv. She hasn't been able to find out if it's still standing, but she arrived in Kharkiv from her honeymoon, it seems 2 hours before the war started. Unbelievable timing, and was there for the first 9 days of the invasion, and then escaped to the UAE, where she is right now. Daria, tell me a little bit about how someone like you reacts to all these comments about war crimes that we've been hearing. And I don't know whether we've been hearing about them in Kharkiv, but we certainly have been hearing about them north of Kyiv. Tell me what you think about when you hear these stories.
It's really terrible, and we are crying all. We are crying when we read such stories of Bucha and all other different cities with this huge and terrible amount of people, children that were died. And it's terrible that somebody decided that he can take lives of people, children, little children, get us out from our homes, destroy cities and our lives, destroy Ukrainian nation. It's really awful.
Do you believe
And
the stories that you hear?
yeah, I really believe, because I have relatives of my husband that have friends in Bucha, so I really knew about the situation that happened there before it was in use.
Kharkiv, I understand, is primarily Russian speaking, and that I think I've been told 90% of the population of Kharkiv spoke Russian. Why would Putin have invaded and killed and destroyed a Russian-speaking city?
I don't know why, but really 90% of people in Kharkiv are speaking Russian, and it was not a problem for us. We can speak Ukrainian and can speak Russian. Ukrainian is our state language, but most all of our citizens have relatives in Russia and can speak Russian. And it's okay, but we are all Ukrainians, and whenever which language we speak, we supposed to be Ukrainian nation.
I understand that, as you say, lots of people in that portion of Ukraine have blood relatives across the border in Russia. Do you have blood
Yes.
relatives? Do you have cousins or relatives in Russia?
Yeah, my mother has a sister, and I have a brother there.
You have a brother in Russia.
Yeah.
And what do they believe? Have you talked to them?
Yes, we have talked to them, but they don't believe in all these terrible things that have happened in Ukraine. They think that this is all for cinema, for news, and nothing happens. Really,
This is
terrible, but yeah.
Your own brother and your own aunt that live.
Yeah.
How far from the Ukrainian border do they live?
In Rostov, it's near the Ukrainian border, not so far.
So they would have seen the tanks. They would have seen probably some of the war going on from being so close. They would have heard it, maybe even.
Yes, they have seen, but they think that this is an operation in Donetsk and Lugansk region, and that's all. They don't believe that all other cities of Ukraine are bombed now. They really don't believe in it.
Can they, we've been told that all the independent news in Russia have been closed down. Do they get news from outside via Facebook or messages or the internet or anything, or are they only getting Russian propaganda?
They get news from Russia, yes, and also we send them messages and explaining all the terrible things that happened there, but they don't believe in it.
You said you wanted to tell me something about Mariupol. Tell me about what's going on there, and if you could just take a second to remind us all where that city is relative to the country of Ukraine and where you were in Kharkiv.
I was in Kharkiv in Saltivka. It's near the border of Russian Federation, and now I see all the news about Mariupol, about our soldiers that are dying there, and which are bombing every minute in real time, and the world is just watching, and nobody can do something to help them, to save their lives, and it's terrible. Nobody can do anything. They just watch. All the world just watch about the situation, and that's awful, I think.
What do you think the world should do?
I think they need to make something, to make evacuation, to make a deal, just to save the lives of the people that are there now. Because there are a lot of people there, not only soldiers, but just people and children, and it's awful. Because the city is destroyed now, almost destroyed. 95% of the city is destroyed, and people are there without the food, without water. It's awful, really awful.
Kharkiv is in the northeast of Russia. Mariupol is in the southeast. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How far would it be from Kharkiv? How many hour drive?
I think 5 or 6.
5 or 6 hour drive from the northeast to the southeast, and it's not on the Black Sea, but it's close to the Black Sea. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct.
And then how much farther to Odessa?
Not so far, like 5 hours.
Another 5 hours, and Odessa is sort of in the center of the south. Is that correct? On the Black Sea?
Yeah.
Have you been to Odessa?
Yes, of course.
What do you think about the bombing that we hear about that's now occurring in Odessa?
I think that the bombing of every city of Ukraine is a big tragedy for people and for Ukraine nation. And Odessa, Kharkiv, Kiev, Lviv, Ivano-Frankivsk, they have bombed almost all the cities of Ukraine.
So Putin had said initially that he was going to denazify Ukraine because he said that Ukraine was treating Russian-speaking people inappropriately, badly, that they needed to be liberated. What do you think of that statement?
No, that's not true, because I'm Russian-speaking citizen of Kharkiv, and it was okay to speak Russian. Nobody told me speak just Ukrainian or leave the city because you speak Russian. No.
So Russian-speaking people were treated without any problem, without any prejudice in Ukraine?
Yes, of course. Of course. Yeah.
And do you are you Russian or are you Ukrainian? How do you what's your bloodlines? How do you think of yourself?
No, I'm Ukrainian, but I speak Russian in my real life. But I can also speak Ukrainian and can write Ukrainian because it's state language, and it's okay for me to speak Ukrainian and Russian. It's not a problem.
I've interviewed some people that are Russian-speaking people from Ukraine or in Ukraine that have stopped speaking Russian and stopped listening to Russian music and Russian culture. How do you feel about that?
Yes, I also stopped to listen to some musicians, but I think that we have our own history of USSR, and it's our history, so we can't stop watching some films that were there. But now all the musicians have politics in their minds, and because of this, I have stopped to listen to some like Polina Gagarina, Leps, and some other musicians because of this. Because They support Russian Federation decisions and the decision is war and destroying our lives and cities.
So the West and NATO have been supplying Ukraine with munitions and arms and armaments, but they so far have not sent in any troops or got directly involved because the opinion is that they can't have direct confrontation with Russia, otherwise it might trigger World War III and a nuclear disaster. What do you think? Should NATO just continue doing what it's doing, or should it get directly involved in this war?
I think they should continue supporting Ukraine with ammunition and all that they do, and never stop it before the war ends. But I don't want to have a third worldwide war on our territory of Ukraine. And because of this, I just need them to support us in a proper way and to know about the news, to know the truth about what happens in Ukraine.
What do you think is going to happen?
I think that the war will stop, and I want to come it earlier because we all want peace in our lives.
Do you think
we just want to live at home?
Do you think Ukraine will be able to push Russia out of the portions of Ukraine that it's invaded and occupied so far?
Yeah, I think yes. If we will have help and support from the West countries, then we can do it.
You have thousands of people in Canada listening to you right now. What's your message to us?
Just don't believe in all the news and all that the words that says Russian Federation, because it's not true. I just want you to know that it's a big tragedy, and it's not operation, it's really a war and tragedy of our Ukrainian nation. And I want you to thank for support and for such opportunity to tell about the situation from the first words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daria Dekanenko. I really appreciate you joining us tonight and sharing your firsthand view of an experience of what's going on in the Russian invasion in Ukraine. And we want you to be safe. And so we pray for you and thank you so much for joining us. That's our